All right, so the very first question you guys addressed, how do we deal with audience's perspective on certain things dealing with health communication? All right, and how can we put it in a better perspective for the audience so they can understand? Because everyone wants to hear good news, especially when it comes to health. Well, there's definitely, I love that, because there definitely needs to be a twist that's positive versus negative when communicating, and that is possible. But okay, what did you guys come up with? Would you kindly share with me, please? Who's the first spokesperson? Because each of you are going to need to have a turn.
Well,
I can
oh,
talk
okay.
about this one. So,
Okay.
um, for this one, we basically discussed how it's all about approach, especially when it comes to people's health. Um, and an example we used was regarding kind of like weight. So instead of saying like, "Oh, you're overweight" or "you're reaching like obesity level," um, we could use a different approach that's like a little bit less negative and say like, "Okay, like your weight level is not like where it can be. There's are like ways that we can improve it and how to like maintain like a healthy lifestyle." And that will kind of like shift the kind of like concern of being like, oh my God, like I'm overweight and like there's all these like health issues like regarding that. And then instead they're focusing on like, okay, like let's be better, like let's do better.
Okay.
So in terms of health, like there's definitely a good way and a bad way of like saying things, and it's just all about approach.
Absolutely. Justin, something that you want to take into consideration, and I love, that you choosing weight as an example, obviously, because that's my forte. But, first of all, there is that doing background research and finding out. Have there already been conversations about weight and what people are most comfortable with in that conversation being addressed? What language is being used? For example, we do know from prior research that calling a person obese is actually, um, it is, that is a BMI categorization tool, and it's not the person for who they are. So saying you are an obese person actually does come across very derogatory, even though it has a medical implication. And so wanting to investigate and find out from the community how they prefer to be referred to. I mean, is it really about overweight versus normal weight? Or is it a person is a fuller body? So excellent point is the sensitivity, choosing words that are really going to speak to the community that they're comfortable with. Now, of course, we can't please all the people all the time. Some people like using language where I just kind of sit there and go, oh, you're blunt. But definitely doing the background research is incredibly important. Secondly, whenever working with a community, folks, you want to take into consideration that when you go in to initiate education, you want to know what their priorities are, what is important to them, what are their goals. So rather than going in with the conversation of we're going to help you lose weight because of these diseases, is identifying for them what is important. They may not identify, oh, I want to get my blood sugar down. They may not identify that because they may not know that's an option. But if they say, their goal is that they want to be healthy, that they want to live a long time, that they don't want to have pain in their knees, now this creates an opening for you to share information. So for example, if you were doing outreach and you haven't had that opportunity to connect with them and find out what's important to them, then you can open the conversation with ideas like, understanding, uh, we're providing health classes to help you achieve your goals. Perhaps you want to play with your children as they grow up, or, to target those common human elements. And that's really a lot of what it's about. In terms of connecting with the audience, folks, is connecting with the human experience. We all have it. And it's just, if we get to the basics of what we all share, and this is the interesting thing, and that's most powerful. And I think what's being most disregarded in our society right now is everyone's so fixated on our differences rather than really looking at what we have in common, which I think is a very sad statement. Okay, excellent, Justin. Thank you very much. All right, who's going to go with the second one? the AK one. Do you guys want me to call on you? Would that make it easier?
I can go over it.
Okay, fabulous.
We were talking about one way to gather like information on people. What would be the best way? As we talked about surveys, how like gathering like whenever seeing a patient, if they could fill out like a little form about where they're from, their how they felt, their experience, etc. They can gather information by that way. And also, we talked about other types of ways, such as like I'm sure there's like statistical data that's been like
Mhm.
gathered, but like we don't really know as much because like it's with the health environment. But we said the best way would be like surveys.
Mhm. Okay, something you want to take into consideration, just to make a distinction, please, folks, is that yes, there is a level of health education that's one-on-one, for example, in a medical office, but typically your most effective and comprehensive education is when you actually bring cohorts together, people together, so that there is a commonality and conversation, because the listening gets a little bit better. Why does it get better? Well, first of all, because when you've got a one-on-one with a doctor, you're actually being exposed to a lot of information at once. And some patients are very receptive to that. But the reality is, if you think about the volume of patients a doctor will see and the fact that doctors have to focus more on admin and less on patient, some of this information is being conveyed typically by handouts or by other healthcare professionals in that one-on-one situation. And if it's a handout, what are the odds the person's going to read the information at home, where now they don't have the opportunity to ask someone questions? So what tends to be a little more effective is when we have the opportunity to educate larger groups. And this is my bias, I admit, is that, my attraction of being at Kaiser is because we really work with groups of people to create change, in addition to that one-on-one. So you touch at two different angles. But I find that with our patients, more people are touched in groups than they are one-on-one. Because when the doctor's trying to get through patients one after the other, they typically don't have time to sit down and directly work with them. Now, segmentation, you guys, just be clear, please. Segmentation means to segment, to group people together, because think about it in terms of like when you have, let's say, the Latino community of Los Angeles, that's a very very broad community. And segment would then subcategorize, to segment it into, maybe people from Guatemala, people from Mexico, so that you start to identify the different cultures, the different dialects, the different diets, and how these are expressed. All right, so the segmentation becomes really important. In terms of locating data, you always want to start with national data to see the big picture, like you guys have done already largely, and then start to hone it down. And some of that data is, you're looking at things like the Census Bureau, you're looking at information from NHANES and BARFIS, but then you do have the ability on a state level and a county level from the public health departments to access smaller sets of data. You also have organizations like Pew Foundation who will collect data. There's a lot of resources out there, folks, but two things to consider is that when tracking these down is to find the resources that, number one, are addressing the communities that you're most interested in and that they're pursuing the information that you want to know. I like the idea of the surveys. I think they're really brilliant because surveys, you really get to connect with people on that individual level, but you've got to have contact with them to complete that survey. If you're utilizing something like a mail-in survey, I don't recall offhand, but the percentage drops down really low on the return. Challenges. All right, Fatima, you're absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. All right, who's going next? Am I just kind of going down the line here, or are you going to volunteer who has JEN?
I'll get on.
Okay, go for it. Who's I?
When we were talking about that one, we were saying that it was important to listen to everyone's opinion, but there's going to be times where people are shut down and they're not wanting to receive any of the information that you're giving them because they're already set in their viewpoint.
Mhm.
And we were saying that in that certain situation, it might be better to maybe pay attention to the people who are giving feedback who are more receptive of the message. That way you can make sure that it actually gets to them.
Yeah, you guys, this is something to be cautious of. Rule number one, you cannot please all the people all the time. And that means you cannot serve all the people all the time. Because as you pointed out, Maggie, if a person does not participate or give feedback, then they have no voice. Okay. So absolutely, if we have to focus on the people who are going to give the most feedback, then yes, we can allow a little bit of creep, meaning a little bit of expansion, if we foresee from our experience information that would be relevant or pertinent to the other people who are not communicating. But we definitely cannot make assumptions, right? That could be incredibly dangerous. And we can't focus our time on a group that's non-participatory. Respecting people's silence is, it kind of goes back to your health belief models, folks, that some people are in that pre-contemplative stage where they either one, don't see a problem, or two, don't feel they need help of any sort, and three, do not want to participate. And trying to hammer them with information or extract information from them is going to fall on deaf ears. That's where we want to give people respect to come to the party on their own. So you guys, are we doing okay so far? Is this all making sense? Working for you? Okay, fabulous. All right, who is next? Miss Amber?
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. Amber, you want to do JS?
Yeah. So it says, when does a health campaign know when to conduct a summative evaluation? And then it says, do they have timeframes they make at the beginning of the campaign, or is it based on milestones they hit instead? When we talked about this, we said that the summative evaluation is obviously something that comes at the end, but it depends on the program whether or not you want to set like milestones to hit throughout your program, because let's say you only have a year to implement it and see like how it works. You might want to set quarterly milestones that you want to hit. But if you have more than enough time and it goes like you have, let's say 2 years you might not want to hit it every 3 months. You might say we want to reach our goals within 5 months and then go from there. Like it all depends on the program and what you're looking for.
Excellent. You guys, this is an example where I try to convey to people that any job you have, the skills that you develop in one job are going to translate to another job. You just got to know how to translate them. Okay. So this is kind of interesting for me, from my perspective, because, maybe no, you don't know. I came from the financial industry and I was a project manager for an investment company before becoming a dietitian. And it's interesting because the project management has actually been my backbone for my dietetic skills and working with people one-on-one, because you can even set milestones for individuals, right? That would be us accomplishing our little mini goals, our objectives, as we work our way towards our master goal to large projects. So my pitch here is, you guys, pay attention to skills that you develop, whether it be interning, at work, babysitting, family dynamics, whatever it is. Please pay attention, because these skills are human skills and they translate to every job possible. So when you're talking about the milestones, you're absolutely correct. Milestones are vital, you guys, because they're like anchors. If you're climbing a mountain, they're anchors so that you know where to connect, so that if things slide, you have some type of definition to keep moving you forward. That if it's a shorter, compressed time period, those milestones, you can't have a ton of them, but they're going to be very succinct that you've got to meet, because the next item can't happen until that milestone's accomplished. As you said, when the project gets bigger, you don't want to have constant milestones, because now you're executing the project based off of milestones rather than allowing the project to evolve. but you still have to keep them in place. So those milestones could be things like achieving, developing the construct of the class, communicating the class, identifying the location, maintaining communication with the people so they keep coming back. Your summative evaluation can be at the end, but you also can have summative evaluations that could be, I wouldn't quite do monthly, but they could be quarterly, they could be annually. If it is a longer term project, like an education campaign, you can have more than one summative evaluation, but that would be, as you said, kind of anchored more with those milestones, creating different stages. Bravo, love it. Okay. And then is Miss Della here, or did we lose her? Oh, we lost her. Okay. Did you guys go over any others?
We had one we couldn't answer. We wanted to discuss it with you. I'm trying to see, where is it? Was it, I think it was what happens during the communication of health communication campaign model when one or more pieces of information are not found, not provided, or refused to be given to. So we just wanted to go over that one with you because we kind of didn't really know how to answer it.
Okay, I don't remember this question. Let me give me a minute. Okay. Okay, what happens during
It was my question.
It was, Justin. All right, so what happens during the communication analysis stage of the health communication model, campaign model? When one or more pieces of information are not found. Okay, so help me by putting it in context for me here. One or more pieces of information are not found. What kind of information are we talking about? Or refused to be given?
Well, let me pull up the textbook again.
Yeah, fabulous.
1 second. Because I myself even forgot.
Welcome to my world. Short-term memory loss at its best. I know it's funny too, you guys, because I went through and I read all these and I thought on them and I'm like, okay, yeah, those are really great. Let's get those in there. Yeah.
Okay, so during the communication analysis stage. Okay, give me 1 second. Come back to me because I'm looking in the textbook right now.
Okay, what I'm thinking is, 1, 2, 3. I'm thinking is that maybe you were inquiring about when you're missing, whether it be statistics, information, how to communicate with the people, basically data. I mean, that's how I interpret this question, is the possibility that you're pondering if you're missing data to be effective in the communication stage.
Yes, that's sorry, I just found it. Yeah.
Okay, so you guys, if you are missing data, you know, it kind of really depends on the type of data that we're talking about. If we're talking about data like the age group or the location or how to communicate with them, then that really to some degree nullifies the project, because it becomes a failure of being able to identify a milestone to progress the project. And you would have to have access to it. So when you develop a project, you do have to have all your ducks lined up. You have to have the information that you need to execute it. To put it in layman's terms, think of it this way, is that if we were to establish a vacation for you and I give you all the information in terms of, yes, you're going to go to the airport and I'm going to have a plane ticket there waiting for you, and you are going to fly to Jamaica and you are going to spend a week at an all resort hotel and everything's lined up for you. And you're like, yeah, what time do I have to be at the airport? You have to be there at 7 a.m. Make sure you have your passport, your bags, everything, right? And you're like, I've got this. This is awesome. And you go to the airport and at 7 a.m. you walk through the doors and you realize, where do I go? Which airline? you know, that disconnect completely stops the whole project. So before you develop a project, when you do that initial investigation, you have to line this information up or it could kill a project. Does that make sense, Justin?
Yes, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, brilliant. You know, these are, you guys, these are such exciting questions. I just really love them. Okay, Maggie, go back to work. We're basically done anyway. So are you able to go over the assignment due on Monday? Yes. Do you want me to go ahead and go over it now and I'll record it?
Sure. I just wanted to hear it real quick. That way, if I had any questions, I could ask them while I have you here.
Then let's do this.
I just wanted
All
to
right,
get some clarity on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, you guys, I just want to commend you for doing an absolutely fantastic job going through these questions. I really hope that this provided a lot of value for you guys. From my perspective, I think it's awesome, but you know, the world I live in is obviously a little bit different from yours, just because I'm trying to pull you guys into my world. But then I live in a tangent, so go figure. All right, so going to your modules, folks. Yeah, I was ironing through this stuff and I'm almost done building it. I'm just missing stage 3 so that you can look forward and understand comprehensively what the big picture is. But your very first stage is the planning stage. And what you've done now is you already investigated 3 different possible communities of interest. And my feedback to you is going to be, you've got to get very specific on that community. Is it if you are saying something like, if you're making a comment about, let's say that you want to focus on the Latina community, it's like, okay, that's pretty darn huge, but it's going to be dependent on the information that then, you know, this one specific most important health need, it's got to be super succinct. And then you've got to know the location, because that original precursory information, folks, is now, you've got to choose one and be really clear on that community to start building your project. You are going to develop a campaign goal. Now, if you recall, the endpoint is going to be a public service announcement. And what we're doing is we're developing the communication. So for example, if you were to choose to target, let's say diabetes in the Latino community in Orange County, or maybe you want to be very specific to Anaheim, a neighborhood specifically, that's fine too. But your question is then you want to develop education for diabetes for that group. Understood, Justin, it's being recorded, no worries. Thank you for participating today. You've got to figure out, so what do you want to accomplish in your campaign? You want to communicate with them, either conveying succinctly information about diabetes or classes to attend, or resources that are available to them. This is open in the sense that you guys get to design and target and develop what it is that you want to go out. No worries, Maggie. You guys are so cute. From there, you've got to start with revisiting the question is, what is the health concern? What is the impetus for this communication? You guys, this is key. When I say creep, it means when we say, oh, well, diabetes, well, now diabetes becomes a part of the conversation of obesity or overweight. And then that becomes a part of the conversation of heart disease. And that's creep, where there's a lot of things that are connected to each other and it keeps just expanding. Keep it tight, keep it really small, okay? Because if you bite off too much, it gets really hard to tackle. So let's see. So keeping your health concern really tight, you want to identify primary and secondary audience analysis. So if you want to, however you want to target this information, you've got to figure out what it is about that targeted population that is going to be important to them, whether it be like what you guys were bringing up earlier. Is it diet that promotes diabetes? Is it lifestyle that's promoting diabetes? Is it how to become more active to reduce blood sugar for diabetes? You can either reach out directly to the community, and I'm serious on this, if you guys are interning or you're active in the community or a church or an after-school program where you have access to people, then you can start collecting that data directly from your audience, because that will become your primary audience. So for example, if you are, let's say, working with a specific community in an after-school program, and you decide to make the parents of that community your specific targeted community, then you can interview them directly. Secondary audience analysis is if you're going to access information from existing constructs. So whether it be, doing the research on epidemiology, the study of the diabetes, or statistics that are maybe local, like public health agencies or other social supportive agencies that have collected this data. So it's second because it's secondhand. You're getting it from them versus grabbing it yourself. You also need to consider what are the best strategies to attract this audience, considering their unique needs. And when I say attract this audience, how to get their attention. Now, we're doing a public service announcement that would, in theory, be presented in forms like YouTube, social media, or not social media, you guys, what's the one? Yeah, where you could do the videos, whatever, or television. But what if your population is, they don't have televisions, but they text constantly? Then maybe that would be an approach. Or maybe it's flyers in a community. There's different possibilities how we reach out to people. So you want to consider what are their unique needs. What about things like, what if it's Spanish speaking neighborhoods only? Then does it make sense to be doing all this in English? No. So those would be examples of unique needs. The possible barriers to the communication campaign. What is that community? What if that community has high incidence of illiteracy in English or in Spanish? Or what if that community is not tech savvy, which means using social media or Facebook or other different forums to communicate would not be as successful? Or what if you want to promote an online education class, but they're not tech savvy? That's kind of self-defeating at that point. And then design a campaign to address the audience's specific concerns. So this is the genesis of your PSA that'll eventually come, is what is it now, considering this background research you're doing? What are you planning? What are you planning on executing? And you've got to identify measurable objectives and milestones. So in this case, this is kind of cool because I partially broke this down for you. The 4 stages of your project really are your milestones, that you've got the initial steps of the planning, identifying the theory, the communication analysis, and then for us, the last piece, the delivery, is the implementation, the PSA. So within each one, when you have a milestone, you have to have measurable objectives, and that's what these steps are. So 1, 2, 3 are your measurable objectives to get you to the milestone of number 4. You guys doing okay? Or yeah, I'm down to 2 of you.
Yeah, it's just a lot, so I'm like listening and
okay. So here's the important thing I need everybody to get. All right. Rule number 1, this is why I like to numerically order things. Go one step at a time. Go slow and easy. Okay. So this is why you've kind of precursory, the first thing you've done is that what is important to you? What do you want to accomplish? So if you, let's say you had targeted the group of the Latinos in, let's say, Anaheim and diabetes, then the question is what is it about them, their health need, that you want to accomplish? Do you want to, give them access to information? Do you want to give them basic information to support their health and well-being? An example was, when I was in school, we did a PSA, and we ended up looking at diabetes and blood sugar. And our project was literally, we created a PSA that encouraged people to get moving in everyday life activities. And so in our PSA, we talked about simple things like park the car farther away. Get up and go for a 10-minute walk after a meal. Use stairs when available. That those little teeny movements help stimulate our muscles to reduce our blood sugar. That was it. That was our campaign. Do you get, this is not something huge. It's actually very small and simple. And that's what I want you guys to do, is keep this as small and tight as possible. Because if it starts to get bigger and bigger, it gets way overwhelming. And that's called having a team on the project versus one person. So what do you want to accomplish? What is it you want to communicate? Again, succinct, keep it tight and small. Once you identify that, then you're going back to that community, you know, and some of this is, I guess I could rearrange this because some of it you've already initially identified and you're just revisiting it to make sure that you're clear on where you're going. If you guys feel a little wah, then just send me a message and say, hey, am I on the right track? Does this look right? You can keep it a bulleted form if you want, that's fine, as long as there's just clarity as to what the bullets are. I'm not expecting you to write an essay, okay? Please don't. You'll kill me. Keep it simple. Keep it straightforward, like action plans.
Thank you, Professor. That clears a lot of information for me.
I mean,
Yeah.
Fatima, honestly, does it help?
It helps a lot, but am I able to do the format that you listed? Because I like that, the whole, you put one and then I kind of put bulletin points, because it helps me organize my thoughts.
Heck yeah, you guys, you have the option on this assignment that if you want to do this like a Q&A, you can. Absolutely. I'm not looking for you to draft proposals, all right? This is, I mean, I'm taking a guess that this is most likely the first time you've really touched this. So I don't want to make it complex. I want to make it realistic, because what you develop here, you may touch again in the future. And I want it to be like a roadmap for you in the future.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Okay,
I actually had a question.
great.
Are we gonna know whether or not like because you said we're supposed to use oh my God, I can't speak, our diverse populations,
Yes.
like one of the communities that we talked about in our diverse communities.
Mhm.
So would we would do that after we get feedback from that?
You know, the feedback, Amber, good question. I'm working on those tonight, and I don't know if I'll be able to get through all of them, but I'm working on it. But the key thing is the feedback I'm giving to you guys on those specifically is saying things like, you've got to narrow it down. This is too big. You've got to identify a specific geographic location. Don't look at it so big. Again, it's got to be succinct and tight. And then the last thing is that, you know, I had some people who said, oh yeah, you know, this community has issues of heart disease, hypertension, diabetes. Okay, well, those are a lot of health needs. So you got to choose the most important one, which you may determine is the most important, versus it may not be statistic because it might be experience. So you can wait for my feedback, but I think that intuitively, you know, the answer is already there.
Okay.
And you choose the groups that's best for you. You know, if you decide that after you submitted those 3 and you're like, I don't want to do these anymore,
You can change your mind.
yeah, I have number 4. Number 4 is fine. Just clear it with me so I know that you're intentionally doing that.
Okay.
Good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Anything else, ladies? Since you're speaking for the whole class.
I think we're fine.
Okay, got it. All right, excellent. I will post this so that you and everyone else have access to it. And then we will continue down the list on Thursday. So if you want to check in and see what those are like also.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
All right, excellent, ladies. You too. And until next time, thank you. All
Hi, Professor.
right, bye.